Folks, good morning. So we have a big project here and we're going to probably do several videos. But the first video is really using a warping board with specific yarn for a specific amount of yarn. And it's important to calculate things correctly so you don't run out of a certain color or a certain yarn that you may only have a small amount of. We are working with new yarn that we know what type of yardage we have approximately. I never go and push it to the final point that it tells me. In this case, they're saying 219. I'm not going that far in case I need a little more. All right. So we are going to do this purposely for putting on a warp from a warping board to a rigid heddle. Okay. So that's important. Now, some of these techniques that we're going to use could be incorporated with floor looms or table looms, but this particular video is specific to a rigid heddle. Okay, so it's good to watch them all and come up with different things that you may think could work for you. And so we're going to do a little math here just to show you how I came up with calculations. And then I also have the color sequence that I'm going to do, which is very important. You kind of need to have that to put it on the board. And a lot of people have bought boards here recently. Instead of doing this, they want to do this instead of doing direct warping on a rigid heddle. This helps because you can tie knots in one place instead of run back and forth between the peg and the loom, the peg and the loom, and then you don't know if you really got it right. So, and then also this is correct yardage because you can't go any more than the pegs. The yarn we're using on this project is going to be Silky, S-I-L-K-K-E, alpaca, and it's a 70-30 blend. Okay, 70 alpaca, 30 silk, and I have chosen 3 colors, each color 219. Okay, and so for the math part here, each one I've also given an abbreviation for this just so that you can see when I did the colorway, it's easier for me to spot it. Okay, normally this is on a piece of paper for me by the warping board. All right, so total I have 107 ends. I do odd because I like both of my holes in my rigid heddles with a thread. You don't have to do that, you can do 108, but I'm doing 107. That's the first thing that's going to mess people up, but it is 107. Okay, I'm using a 12 dent, and I'm going to do this in a cricket, so it is a 12 dent, not Ashford. Ashford's 12 and a half. You're going to use more yarn if you use the half, so this is a 12 dent. If you took 107 divided by 12, you're going to get 8.916. That is the width of my scarf, the width of it, all right? So just knowing this, all right, to figure out, to make sure you have enough of this, this is how I did this. I took 107 threads. Remember we talked about the ends. I want my scarf 100 inches long. That includes waist and fringe. All right, so it's a total of 107. Comes up to 10,700. I divided by 36 because there's 36 inches in a yard. This is in inches. Inches, inches. All right. So this comes up to 297.222 yards total for the warp. If I was using one color, that's what I would use. In this case, I'm using 3 of them, and I'm thinking of it as in third, third, third to equal that. It comes up to about 99.07. You can round off and say I need 100 yards of each color for the warp. All right, so that right there, I'm good because I'm halfway. So that means I have half for the warp, and I haven't done the weft yet, but I'll show that later. That'll be a half, and I'll have to really divide that up to make sure I have enough for that. All right, so that's pretty easy to understand, I hope. Once again, need 107 ends. When I design this, I just make this up. I lay it out. I know colors. I use colored pencils. Some people say, how do you do it? That's kind of hard to say. So I just come up with it. Let's hope it looks good. So anyway, so my color order is this, and this is very important. You're going to think, if I was doing this with a rigid heddle, direct warping, totally different. Okay, I really designed this more for the warping board. Okay, so color order 13 cream. And this is kind of weird. People are like, I don't understand this part. This means alternating. That means I'm going to do a dark, light, in this case, dark cream, because I have my abbreviations, DC, DC, total of this. So this is important because that's going to give me a dark light in between, just a smidge of it. And then I go back to this. The middle part, if you notice, I did the middle of the scarf is right here. I made it a little slightly wider. If you're going to ask, which I know some people are asking, why did you do dark next to this and cream? If you noticed on this one started on a dark, ended on a cream. That's because this was cream. I want to buffer it with the dark first. The cream is going to run it back into the dark here. That's why I don't add the second one. So I'm kind of doing a little design there. This one's totally different. They're buffered by the pink, so I'm doing a DC, and guess what? I ended on a D. So that's just a design thing. So then I'm going to go all the way down to here. Once I have this laid out, I added all of these up, and I come up with 107 ends. But then I wanted to make sure that I wasn't overusing one color compared to the other color. So in this case, I counted them. I had 36 cream, 35 dark, 36 pink. Came to 107. So I knew I was pretty much well even on each one. I'm -1 on the dark, but it's very close. All right, so that right there is the layout for the design of the scarf, the number of yards I need. Now we're going to talk about the warp board and the template string you need to do. So I found a mistake. Always write things down, always relook at it. And some of y'all may have already caught this and hadn't emailed me yet, but I caught it. So here, I had the 3-4 here. Wrong. If you look at this, this is what I need over here, 5 dark, 4 cream. So in this one, I'm going to take this one off. So I'm going to be 5, 4, and then I alternate this, okay? So I'll do a dark cream. And I mean, I knew it when I said it in my head, but did I write it that way? And numbers don't lie. You'll get up here and then I would be 2 short threads. So it could probably still work, but I kind of want to do it this way. So anyway, sorry about that. So we're here at the warping board, and the main thing to begin with is how long did I need the actual length of the warp? And it was 100 inches. And so before I did anything was I got a regular piece of cotton thread. I made 2 loops on it, and we're going to show you how to make these loops in a minute. But from here to here is 100 inches. And so when you're on your warping board, you're thinking, where do I go with the pegs? Do I go this way or do I go across? You do go across. Usually from one peg to this peg is about a yard. It should be a yard, if it is a yard board, okay? This is why this string is important instead of trying to measure it with your tape measure. I will use my tape measure later to check it. So when I start, here's 3 pegs that are really close at the top. You also have 3 pegs that are really close at the bottom. Since this is a short warp, I'm tall, I like to stand, I'm going to do these, okay, as my cross up here, all right? So when you're putting this on here, that's where that loop is. Now, it's not 100 inches from here, it's 100 inches from here, and that's what's important, okay? I want a total length of 100 inches. Otherwise, I'm going to use more yarn, and then I may not have enough yarn, okay? So over, under, and then around. This looks weird, okay? So I'm going to go under, over, okay? Now, should I do this and go to here, and then I go to here? I could go to here, and that would be 100 inches. I have very large hands. Since I'm not going to use any of the rest of the board, I'm going to give myself a little bit of space here. Okay, so this just makes it easier on me. This is things I've come up with for me. If you want to do it this way, it's fine. It's still going to be 100 inches. But in my case, I'm going to go to the second peg here. And now I have more room here to be able to look at my cross. And this is what is so important. All right, so then you come over here, and then you're going to come to here, or you could actually go to the bottom one here. And this one will slide right on right here. So this string is a template. This is 100 inches right here. This is what I'm going to follow. So then I'm going to start with my regular yarn, which is the silky alpaca, and then I'm going to do 13. And that I'm going to show you what 13 means. So I'm going to show you how to do that knot. The first knot we're going to do is the overhand knot, and this one's important to have a larger loop. So when I do this one, I've got it a longer piece hanging here. I don't have a really short piece like this. I've got probably 3 inches maybe, okay? So then I'm going to take these two, if I can pinch them together like this, and then if you can imagine, I am making a number 6. Number 6. Then you take the end, fold it in. When I make this, what I want is enough of a loop to house the fingers. Okay, so I'm going down. You can see that it looks like a big loop here. It's not a slip knot. It's an actual knot. And that's important because this is what's going to go on the peg in the very beginning because I have nothing to tie it to. When I change colors, I'm going to do the same 6 knot, but I'm joining the two with each other instead of on top. So I'm going to show that one next. When I'm joining 2 colors together, instead of doing a square knot, I don't do that because I'm afraid that it won't hold under the tension on a warping board. So when I do these, I lay these together side by side, parallel, if you can imagine, do the same 6 like this, no loop. So when I do this, you don't need a loop, because when they're tied together, these are together. That's important when you're using the warp board, okay? I'll do this when I do the warp board, but this is how we make the knot. All right, so we're ready to start. Got my loop, which is great, and the reason why I want it larger is that it slides on the peg. You're not gonna take this and do this number because that's gonna come off. So it's very important. Make a loop. Goes on here. Follow this. This is my template. The first one. When I come back, I'm going to show you what I need to do different. Okay, so I'm following the string. Here, I'm going to go around here, and then I'm back here to the last peg. Be consistent is always my theory, what you should do. Whatever you do, do the same thing. So this is number 1, goes down. I'm going to make this over. If you start doing over, under, not paying attention, you're going to get mixed up. So I'm going to go over. I've gone over the pegs all the time. So now I'm coming back, and I'm going to go follow this. I can't go over here because guess what I just did? I crossed. I'm following this. On this one I went over. So I'm following it, going back, coming back. If I followed the same path, I can't tell if this is the first thread or the second thread. So this is where you hear the terminology, your warp cross, your cross. And that basically is a ladder effect. It's alternating threads. It keeps the threads from getting confused. Okay, so when I go to here, instead of following this one, guess what I'm going to do? You see the X? It's hard to see because of this one, but if this was pinched, you would have an X. So when I come back around, you now see an X again. So I have 1, 2, 3. That's how they stay separated. So make sure, now I'm coming back. Okay, see what I just did? I'm following it over, over. And when I do this, I'm pushing it back. I'm not taking the threads and sticking it behind the ones. I want to stay uniform in a line. Okay, you can push them back but still stay in a line. Coming back over that one, now I'm back again. Coming up, follow. If you can't remember what you're doing, so if I'm stopping here saying what did I do on this one? So this one went under, this one needs to go over. It's always the opposite of the previous one. So if this goes under, this one has to make the X. If I went under, I'd be doing the same thing. So it's very important to pay attention. I talked to a customer on the phone, and I told her, put an arrow. If you want to draw on your warping board, put an arrow. Put a piece of tape on it, painter's tape. Put an arrow this way, put an arrow this way. So you know the path. If you don't have to think about it, you know it's right, and then you can move faster, okay? So then back, and then now I'm under. So I'm going over, and here, and then I'm back, okay? If you notice these are all, you should push these back. All of them should be flat against the board, okay? Now, during all the talking, I can't do more than 13. I only need 13. I've had a lot of people say, what do I do if I want to count? Because I don't know what to do. Do I just drop this? If I drop this, guess what happens? It becomes saggy. You don't want that. You want everything consistently the same tension. I'm not pulling on it to break it, but I'm giving it a little bit of tension. And I can't explain that on a camera. It's more of a feel. You want it to be not saggy, somewhat tensioned. Some yarns are going to be more springy, so if you pull too hard, you're actually going to pull out your length. It won't be 100 inches. Okay? So with this, if I was going to stop, I can take this and either wrap it around the peg enough to where this is not going anywhere. You need to do something. Some people put tape. Some people do different things. That's where you need to decide what is best for you. Okay? So right now I'm going to count my cream threads. If you count here, it could be wrong. Okay? The reason I'm saying that is that you could have made a mistake and done 2 on this path and didn't do this. So, especially if the whole board is full. This is where you count. You want to count in the cross. So on the counting process, just to see how many creams I have, like I said, the first one is the most difficult because of the loop. Don't count 2 here. It's 1 because of the loop. Okay, so this is 1. And the way I count is I'm over here with my fingers right here and I'm putting a little bit of pressure. If I drop 1, so that's 2, okay, and then I bring my fingers back up, that's number 3, this is number 4, this is number 5. So it literally is like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, okay? So that right there, I've got 5 of 13, okay? I need to get 13 creams for my border on my scarf, okay? So 5. When I come back up, okay, and I would like to come back up and show you, so this is 5, okay, so I'm going to bring it up, so 5, and when I come back up, that's 6. So 6 just made it across. When I go around here, this is 7. That's 7. Then I'm going to come back up and down till I get to 13. Okay, so this is 7. Some people try to count when they're doing it. Sometimes you double count or whatever. So, I mean, when I'm right on it, like 10, 11, I need that. That's different. But when I'm doing 20 or something or 14, I don't even count. I just kind of do it a couple of times and then I count. A couple of times count, you know. Because in this case, we don't want to use any more than what we have. So I have counted twice. This is number 12. 12. 13 is this way. Because I've already rounded the corner and have 13, don't stop and tie this because that means that's just 12. 13 will end down at the down peg. And you have to be really careful with that because you will forget if you end up at the top, that was only 12. Follow the numbers. That's what I'm going to tell you. So number 13 has to go all the way to the bottom. And then we're tying on colors. And this is where it's going to get interesting because I'm going to be doing dark light, dark light. So that's going to be a headache in the very beginning, but we'll get through that because it's not that many. And then we'll be on to the wider stripes. All right, so I'm going to the end. Down here. Right here. So that's 13. That's very, very important. Okay, now I'm getting ready to tie on dark. Okay, so with the dark, this is what's important, that when you have your dark color and you want to tie on, what I normally do is I put my finger here and I have just basically a mark, okay, and I've always, so from here, that's 13. I just always give myself a tail here of about 2 inches is usually my going rate right here because that's what I can tie a knot at. I don't want to cut a bunch because I'm going to run out. So in this case, about 2 inches. That's about 2 inches. I'm just going to say that. All right, so from here, holding this and trying to tie a knot is sometimes very hard for people. Take the end where you were at, just do a loop around here. I can at least hold this and it not be, you know, trying to pull on it. All right, so once again, 2 inches is that's where my knot needs to be to fit on the back side of the peg. Okay, so I'm going to lay these together, do this one, 2 inches. This is about, if you think about your tail, 2 inches. So then I hold this because I don't want to undo it, come around. This piece right here, see where my knot is? It's right there on the end. So now I'm ready to go back up with my dark color. And this is be great because then you can see that X. You can see over, make that X. Look at the last one if you have to. What is it supposed to do? This one. I don't need 2. I need 1. So I'm alternating, okay? You can do the 3 browns if you want to together and then do the 3 creams. But in this case, I'm going to show you exactly what you do. And yes, you have to cut it each time. And just to show, it gives you practice to make a knot and stuff. And then we'll be on to the next wider series. So once again, 1 pick. Find your place. Take your scissors. Do 2 inches. 2 inches. If you want, it doesn't matter where you put this one. You can just wrap it around like that, still holding its tension. Then I'm going back to cream. If I had a whole warp of this, I would do it differently. But since this is just a smidge of what I'm doing, just it's only 6 picks, the middle will be a different number. But this one isn't, so it's not going to be that many. Nope. It's pretty slick. It's a trick to try to get them all to do the same thing. That might not happen at first, but this is waste, so try to get it right here. Closer is better. And I have a dark to do, and then back to the cream. Is that right? Dark light? No, it's just my last one. 1, 2, 3, cream. So this was the last of the sequence. So I did a dark, a cream, a darker cream, a darker cream, a darker cream, and then now I'm getting ready to do a band of dark, okay? And then I'm going to proceed through the same thing. So we'll probably do a couple of stripes, and then we'll come back to the center. And then after you've gotten half of it done, you just reverse yourself to the other side. So this is something that could take an hour or more, just depends. The more consistent you are with it, and the counting process, the more correct you will be. So the cross is very important. Cannot stress this enough. If you lose your cross, you will lose pretty much, well, the I mean, it's just too tangled, especially something like this that has a halo to it. So you can see here, especially right here, you can see where it goes, you know, cream. Let's see if I can show this better. This was my 13 here, okay? And so then you can see dark, light, dark, light, dark, light. And so I had 3 of these and 3 of these, and that's another way to look at it. So you can see that I've counted these. 3, 3. And they do have a cross, makes an X. All right, so what I'm going to do is I've done the completed warp. It's all done, beautiful. And then this is my last thread of my 13. It's very hard to tie this to this. You don't want to do the loopy loop. You want to do the same kind of, you know, larger loop here that can slide over the peg, okay? And the way I've always done it is I don't stretch this one as much. I just kind of literally lay it there, pinch these 2 together, okay? Slide this off, and then I'm just going to do that 6 again, overhand knot. Because I didn't pull on it that tight, I still have a little bit of pull. And so then I can slide this on. That's my last one. Then I'm going to take my scissors, clip this, okay, here. If you want to be really tidy, you can trim these. Sometimes these will get caught, but you can if you want, just depends. I try not to cut too close to the knot because it could come out. But these are overhand knots, remember, not square knots. All right, next we're going to do is what we call chokes. All right, so I'm going to put my first choke right in through here. And so what I'm doing is I put my finger in here because there's a complete separation. I've got my template string in the back. In, take your thread, go in the hole. Bring it on top. Go back in, and under. Go back in, on top, and down. If you look at this, looks like an M. If you look at that, the reason I like that is that when one of the threads is on this side and one of them's on this side. When you cinch this, you've actually woven it under, over. It looks like you just wove it. But the reason I like it is that when you tie this, you are cinching this. That is so tight right there. You've woven it. So when I crossed it over and cinched this, I'm going to now just do a half of a loop, a half bow, okay? Instead of doing like you're tying your tennis shoes under your finger, under, put it behind, and all you're doing is a half of a loop. So you can pull this out very easily. I never really put knots in this because when I'm on the loom, I don't want to try to cut that because I know I'll cut my warp. That one's done. All right, so around the world's 36 inches, 1 yard away from the cross point. Try not to take this into your around the world. I'm taking my thread. I'm literally going around the whole thing, around. And so then when I'm back to here, I got one under, one over, okay? When I cinch this, you can see how it cinches really, really tight. And I'm going to cross over really tight. And I'm going to do a half bow. Well, not a knot, not a knot. There. Got a figure 8 around the world. Next is the cross, the most important. So the cross is really the most important thing because this is what keeps each thread parallel to each other and in the sequential order that I have warped this. And once again, some people do this totally different, and I think you can do it any way you want to as long as you're aware of what you're doing. I was taught that if it's a really wide warp, you're doing it, you can do cinches in between, okay? This was a pretty short, narrow warp in terms of width. I'm going to take my choke, same thing, double. I'm going to put it in the first V. If you look at this, it looks like a V. So when you're going all the way through, try not to get this one right here. What you don't want to do is grab that loop, okay? So you want to make sure that that loop is treated as its individual thread. So this one was up. So take the blue thread, go all the way through, like this. And then I do a U-turn, and I'm going to just U it back around, come back in this one here. You can see that this dowel, I've just run my finger all the way to the back, making sure that I didn't grab that actual template thread, and I'm coming around this way. So what I have is a U. If I pick this up and I hold it, you should literally be able to see it's grabbed that back thread. It's so important to do that, okay? And to do this, you can check it to make sure it's in the cross. If you don't have this, and I've missed one or two in here, it's not easy. It's not easy to fix. It's best to make sure, double it, make sure. So once again, I do this, I take this, and then I cinch it, and then I do an actual bow tie again. I like one continual string because when I'm going to use my least sticks, this is going to be easier than having individual ones without them getting crisscrossed. So that will be the next step, putting it on the loom. And once again, this will be a little different for some of y'all, but hopefully you can watch and learn something. All right, so we're going to chain this warp off. That is very difficult because if somebody has put so much tension on it, it's going to be like a rubber band. It's going to spring and go pop and pop right off. There are some tricks I have had, and I don't have a rubber band. Some people have used O-rings and put on these because that will prevent this from popping off as much. I'm just going to, that's why you try to make it taunt, but not killer taunt. So once again, people always ask about this figure 8 down here. This makes it easier because it's divided right here. All I have to do is grab this because I've got one bottom half layer. And if I'm pulling this off, notice I'm going slow. And so now I'm going to let up some slack now. So it's not going to pop off. Once that's off, you're good to go. Okay. Now, this is not really attached to the frame, so I'm going to be really careful. Notice I haven't let go of this. This is where my hand goes in here. So if I put my hand in the loop, I've already previously got a loop. Some people will take the figure 8 and put it too close. They don't have enough room for the hand. Depends on your hand size. Mine's pretty big. So once I have this, this is basically the crochet. You can literally take this, grab, throw it over. You want your hand to go back in. Okay, you're literally it's just a loop, and it's really hard because this is short. That will go back over. If you want, I'm just going to take this walk. I could walk over here and actually keep tension on it this way and do that. But because this is a very short warp, I literally can chain this way. When I get to this choke, this is normally where I stop, but you can continue if you want to do this. But now, this is your chain right here, and you're ready to put it on the loom. So if you get a pre-warped chain from a kit, this is something that you'll have. Don't cut the cross. That's so important, okay? So from this point right here, you might have a couple of things that are holding it together. So follow the instructions, get to this, and then follow the next video we're gonna do that's gonna show you how to put it on. So I'm gonna reiterate a point here on chaining, since this is a short warp. When you're chaining, it's basically a crochet chain. So you can see what I'm doing. Most people, when they get to the end, they don't stop. They'll take this end, take it through the hole, and do this. creating a knot. And that's not a good thing, because if you go ahead and put this in the reed, you're not going to be able to go anywhere because of this. So it's really not great to do that. Okay, some people think, well, it's great to carry it, but if you don't remember that you did that, I tend to not do that. I just tend to put it in a bag real carefully, because this has to be taken back out to make sure that it's not completely, once again, not knotted. Because when you pull this warp to put it on, it's going to unchain itself very easily. So.